So we just learned in the War Within beta that not only is there a ton of old god blood below Kazakar, but that this blood is actually alive. You might remember this new mural of what appears to finally be that fifth old god that looks like a mix between Y'Shaarj and N'Zoth. No, this is 100% not Xal'atath, it was confirmed by the new dialogue. By this point, we know that the first World 3 Luna hero was planted upon Kazakar. However, what if this guy was another Y'Shaarj? They ripped that guy out and had to fix it by creating the Well of Eternity. However, what if ripping this guy out created an even bigger mess? First they tried to mask it by planting a World Tree over him. When that failed, they just tried to seal the entire thing with the Earthen, but based on the blood, it looks like he might still be alive. So who even is this guy, and could this be the final boss of War Within? If you're playing WoW or TerraSand or any other MMORPG and you're winning a PvP scenario and getting ambushed by lag is the worst thing to happen. However, Lagafast has the perfect solution for that. This is a passport to lag-free gaming. Best of all, it's absolutely free. Just click my link below and download it and just search for the game you're playing and click Smart Boost. It really is as simple as that. Lagafast is amazing for World of Warcraft, in particular the new MMORPG TerraSand, but also most other games that you're playing. Best of all, it's compatible with PC and consoles, and it can help improve your FPS as well, guaranteeing a seamless and enjoyable gaming experience. No more delays and frustrations, vanquish hyping, try it completely free with my link below and use code DORON to get 30% off right away. If you've been following the alpha news, you must have discovered this crazy mural by now, found in the lowest most layer of Kazakar, Azj-Kahet and Nerubian Kingdom, and this is still the #1 speculation up to this day and the #1 most interesting finding from the War Within beta. Aside from the fifth old god, a lot of people have been talking that this is Xal'atath's real form, and let me just tell you, it's not. I mean, if this figure is an old god, then it isn't Xal'atath, because Xal'atath has quite literally been confirmed with new beta dialogue to not be an old god. Illyria says that Harbinger is not an old god, but a survivor from the Death Satan. By all the current evidence, she's something of a figure that does like the finishing work and prepares the world to awaken with the void, something of a more fine tool when the old gods had done their work. So what exactly is this mural then, if it isn't Xal'atath? Well, by all the current evidence that we have, the strongest supporting theory is that this is in fact the fifth old god. Now, you may be thinking, what is a fifth old god? We only know 4, and that is N'Zoth, Y'Shaarj, Khatoon, and Yogg-Saron, and now Kahun doesn't even help because that is a Titan experiment. However, if you guys have been following the lore since Dragonflight, it is essentially confirmed that 5 old gods exist. Original classic documents stated that 5 of them were around, then this was retconned later on to confirm that 4 that we know, and then this document was brought back in Dragonflight and it is still in the game. Even more importantly, we had Deathwing's writing that was studying the old gods that said Titans are liars, they had not in fact rid and imprisoned all the old gods as they say, but they had apparently hid something beyond the waves. Now, this beyond the waves could definitely refer to either Kazakar, that is obviously beyond the waves, or the new continent west of Kalimdor, where the Arathi Empire, Light Arathi Empire, should be around. So that is the info that the fifth old god exists, or has existed in the past, but then we have actual information from the War Within beta that is incredibly interesting. We actually have 2 bits of crucial information. One is that the old god blood is still alive and is being harvested, and second is that mural that still hasn't been explained. So the mural itself shows what appears to be another old god figure. Some people think this is Y'Shaarj due to the number of eyes, some think this is N'Zoth, but it couldn't be because despite the Kraken appearance, N'Zoth does actually look quite a bit different. In my opinion, this seems like a mix between both of them, and it would make sense if this guy was around both Y'Shaarj and N'Zoth. However, the picture is even more telling than it actually appears on first glance. It doesn't just show this new old god figure, but 2 other very big things. One is the Void Crystal that is seemingly enabling all this and is functioning as the sun, and the other is what appears to be Nerubians being sacrificed willingly or unwillingly to this monstrosity. So the picture itself shows the faceless ones with weapons, as well as these weird figures that look like the Draktyr, but are probably some type of old god figures, and they all have weapons, and we can see the bug-like people being led into the actual mouth of this old god. My guess is that the Nerubians were sacrificed to this fifth old god in the ancient past, which is why they are actually free and independent. Have you ever thought that it was really weird that Nerubians are the only old god creations that are free from their influence that we had actually met? We have met the Granted, on Pandaria, for example, they're like half independent, but they made it quite clear that they will follow Y'Shaarj if he decides to return. The Nerubians, on the other hand, had completely split. You might remember this lore from Northrend. They were even winning against the Scourge until they dug out servants of Yogg-Saron, and then they were actually fighting actual Old God minions. Also, we learned from the beta that Azul Nerub in Northrend and Azj-Kahet in Kazakar are connected via this massive worldwide tunnel, and that Anub'arak and this queen were actually in contact. It is very likely that they split from this Old God in the ancient past, and one of them ventured through this tunnel to Northrend while the rest remained. It also makes sense why there is currently a split within the Nerubians and why some of them are following Xal'atath while the others are definitely rebelling against this Old God order. If this mural is a look into the past, it might show the Nerubians that they used to be victims and why they could free themselves, and just how the Titans are using their own minions as puppets, so were the Old Gods just sacrificing the Nerubians left and right. The other big thing to notice on the mural is the giant void crystal on the right. So you might not think this is a big deal. I'm almost certain this is the Beledar light crystal from Hellafall. The reason is it shows sun rays, and we know Beledar functions as something akin to the sun. This is all still wrapped in mystery. The only thing we know is that the crystal is called Beledar and that it started turning into the void the moment Sargeras had struck Azeroth at the end of Legion. If this mural is a look into the future, it could show what is to come, but I think it is actually a look in the past, and that this crystal was a void crystal back in the day, or was turned in the same manner as it has been done now in ancient history. However, who exactly is this figure from the mural and what is even going on? So we actually have some really interesting information from the Azj-Kahet questlines, and this all relates to the blood of the Old Gods. Apparently, the Old God blood still persists, and it is even said to actually be alive, and it is found in the deep pools of Azj-Kahet, which is the lowest most layer of this new island. At least for now, because I think there are actually other layers. Interesting enough, Xal'atath and the Xal'atath aligned Nerubian Queen are hard at collecting this substance for the big mission, while the Haronir, the protectors of the World Tree, are trying to study it and deny the Nerubians access to it. I think this bit here is crucial. I don't want to bore you with the same story, the same evidence, but it is almost certain that the entire zone of Kazakar is literally where Azeroth's first World Tree was, Eluna here, that the Titan Aman'Tul had ripped out. This is really as good as confirmed, and the Haronir, this new race, seem to be the ancient protectors of these roots. Now, here is the interesting bit. We learned from the book that Elune and the Titan Eonar had a really close connection, and they worked together on this when the big war happened of the Titans invading Azeroth and defeating the Black Empire in the ancient past. During the actual battles, Eonar had planted this World Tree, having been convinced by Elune that this huge infusion of the influence of life will drive the darkness away. This tree grew to an insane extent, and then the lead Titan Aman'Tul got really pissed about the newly created chaos and just had it ripped out. Eonar was really bitter and wept tears which infused the roots fed on the Titan tears and grew really strong. Now, these roots are almost certainly around Azj-Kahet, and by all the current evidence from the beta, there seems to be another patch zone below this layer. Blizzard has actually confirmed there is another map of Kazakar they don't want to show in the beta because it would obviously spoil the entire storyline. However, here is where the actual Old God comes in. Do you find it really interesting that the Titan tears are about the same place where the Old God blood is, and also that the roots are exactly where the Nerubian Kingdom, the Old God Nerubian Kingdom, is? That is almost certainly because they must have planted a World Tree upon the remains of an actual Old God. Now, we have two possible scenarios why we never actually heard about this guy. One is that this is the fifth Old God that was killed by his own in some type of a civil war before the Titans even arrived, and just a huge corrupted puddle remained where Kazakar is, so he didn't participate in the war, or that this fifth Old God was ripped out much like Y'Shaarj, but they messed up even more. Remember the Chronicle lore. Y'Shaarj, the strongest Old God, was ripped out personally by Aman'Tul, which created a Well of Eternity from the wound. Now, what if they really messed up by ripping out this fifth Old God, and they couldn't do anything like the Well of Eternity again because this is really close to the heart of the actual World Soul, so they tried to patch it up with a World Tree and mask the problem, then they got to a bit of a disagreement, then ripped it out, made it even bigger mess, and then they tried to seal it with all these earthen and the entire fissure they were talking about. Now, here is the really interesting thing. Old gods don't really die. in a conventional sense. They're not bound to the Shadowlands or the life and death cycle, so they can persist in various forms, as we had learned over the years. This means that this fifth old god was never really killed, which is why the blood is still alive, and he may even still be alive right now in this form. I don't necessarily think this is all that big of a deal, but maybe Xal'atath is trying to get this guy back with the blood they're connecting in order to have a really powerful figure that could complete the Void Awakening of Azeroth, which is going to lead into Midnight. This would make for a really interesting boss for the end of this expansion that would let Xal'atath continue her mission on in Midnight, so we don't kill this villain right away. Or she could be trying to get the blood of this fallen old god and then combine it with the others she had gotten, and even the blood of Y'Shaarj that she's probably going to get from Remix, to forge something really powerful that would complete this awakening. If she gets Khatoon from Classic and Y'Shaarj from Pandaria, she would essentially have essence of all the old gods at this point. All in all, this is definitely some of the most interesting new lore from the beta. Thank you for watching. Check out the Titans actually already attacking us with this new construct by clicking on the screen, and check out my video on the Cult of Mithras and Roman mythology by clicking on the screen as well. See you next time.